It was October 30th, 2018, and amid the hustle and bustle of people getting ready for the sacred holiday of All Hallows Eve, the creator of Undertale, Toby Fox, had other things on his agenda. It was this day that the Twitter handle for Undertale began acting strange. Before, it'd tweet casual reminders about the game, patch announcements, discussions about the upcoming Switch release, etc., etc. But, as I said, on October 30th, 2018, there was a shift.
Welcome. Have you been looking for me? How wonderful. I have been looking for you as well. I have something I want to show you. Something I think you will find very, very interesting. But it is not complete yet. No, it is far from complete. Thus, I have a small favor to ask of you. Return here in 24 hours. At that time, I will ask you a few questions. Then, using your responses, we will approach its realization. Thank you very much for your time. I will be in contact again, soon.
It tweeted again 24 hours later.
Thank you for waiting so long. After all, you and I, we have both been waiting such a very long time. So, to be here, finally, on the verge of connection, is quite exciting. I look forward to creating a new future with you. Now, show yourself, DELTARUNE!
Sir, this is Walgreens.
It was then the internet would be sufficiently broken by the surprise release of the entire first chapter of Fox's newest project, entitled Deltarune. In a stunning turn of events, an informal non-disclosure agreement was applied to the release for 24 hours, but it only makes sense the internet couldn't keep their mouths shut. It wouldn't be long before the denizens of the interwebs would uncover that Deltarune is an anagram of Undertale, but it's also an anagram of Unrelated, Neutral Ed, later Nude, and Nut Dealer, so it's probably safe to say that's not a reliable source of information. As the people of the internet played this first chapter, some questions began to arise, such as whether or not this was the same universe displayed in Undertale, which Fox answered, for the most part, in a Twitlonger post. I will say that basically what you're seeing here is not the world of Undertale. Undertale's world and ending are the same as however you left them. If everyone was happy in your ending, the people in the Undertale world will still be happy. So please don't worry about those characters and that world. It will remain untouched. So, all that being said, welcome to the Pixcelation Show, the only series on YouTube to tackle the questions on everyone's minds, such as, will Deltarune release in our lifetimes? I'm Pixcelation, and in today's episode we'll be discussing the successor to Undertale, which you all know by now as Deltarune. If you've been waiting to give this one a shot, please go give it a try, as there's a very real chance we're never gonna get to play the full version. At its core, Deltarune is simply a taste of something much, much larger, yet it's already jam-packed with around 4 hours of content if you complete everything. That's compared with its big sister, which generally takes between 5 and 8 hours to complete. As I played through the first chapter, it amazed me how much it felt like a full story rather than just a piece of what's to come, but again, that's a testament to the sheer insanity that is Toby Fox. So let's take a look at this wholly unique yet oddly familiar world, and don't forget, I'm with you in the dark. In the world of Deltarune, you play as a human named Chris who is living with Toriel? Is that Toriel? On the surface in a village populated with monsters. tutorial takes Chris to school, where they're met with the school's delinquent, Susie, who makes it very clear that in this game, your choices don't matter. It's then that you're both transported to the Dark World, where you're given the classic RPG spiel about you being the long-awaited Chosen One meant to restore the balance between light and dark. It's a simple premise, but one that impacts the audience and how it's handled. While your character is silent, Susie doesn't mince words when it comes to criticisms leveled at this so-called Chosen One prophecy. Joining Chris and Susie on their journey to close the Dark Fountain is the king of all fluffy boys, Rousey, whose name, if you notice, is an anagram of Azrael, who is sort of their mentor and guide. Each of these characters is developed into a fully three-dimensional person by the end of the chapter, which gives me hope for what's to come in future installments of this story. If I know anything from Undertale, we'll likely be crying by the final act, especially when you take into account that Toby will have a team this time, rather than this being a one- or two-person operation. I would like to talk a bit about Susie, as I really dug how different she is when compared to anyone else in the Foxiverse. The closest monster I'd compare her with is Undyne because of how both characters tend to shoot first and ask questions later. In fact, for a lot of the chapters, she'll often ignore your battle commands, choosing instead to attack enemies instead of sparing them, which allows for an interesting and kind of hilarious mechanic where you're able to warn the enemies to be wary of your supposed comrade. I also appreciate how she spends a big part of the chapter teamed up with the apparent bad guy, which left me utterly confused as to what was really going on in her head. I also really liked Rousey, who's an absolute fluffball and deserves nothing more than the softest and most reassuring hugs imaginable. I must reiterate the fact that even if this is merely a demo of things to come, it felt like a full-length game rather than just a taste. I went into this expecting maybe an hour of content and a cliffhanger that enticed me to play the full thing once it came out. Instead, I got a full-length game with a beginning, a middle, and an end, with a cliffhanger that enticed me to play the full thing once it came out. I'd love to someday develop my own game, but if and when that were to ever happen, the way Fox handled marketing for this thing has given me ideas. I believe he's a genius, but that's far from the point of this video. In the beginning, before you ever awaken as Chris, you're instructed to create an avatar for your soul. While the choices are largely the same, as soon as you finish, you're told a simple truth. No one can choose who they are in this world. It's contrasting with the open and free nature of Undertale, where your choice meant literally everything. It's a polar shift from the days when you decided to spare your enemies or kill them in cold blood. Including the introduction segment, as well as the instance where Susie tells you choices don't matter, there are other moments in the first chapter that help to back this up. I'll go so far as to include the fact that you can't even choose who your partner is in class, damn it! I wanted to team up with Tem! In the earlier mentioned Twitlonger post, Fox addressed the absence of choice in a very matter-of-fact way, stating that, "No matter what you do, the ending will be the same." He goes on to say it feels oppressive to confirm this, despite most games only having one ending, but it emphasizes the idea that Deltarune is its own game, independent of the parameters that made its sibling a success. I think, no matter what, Deltarune is going to exist in the shadow of Undertale, but if he levels our expectations this early, he can establish an identity for his sophomore hit. It's easy to play Undertale and expect everything he creates to follow the same pattern, but if they did, what reason would there be to play? I believe that by following Undertale with a game where you're restricted, without agency, he's evolving as a creator and preparing a new experience that will rival his debut, even if it's in a different way than we can imagine. Take Hideo Kojima, for example. One of the most prolific icons in the games industry, he's mostly known for one kind of game, stealth adventures. If you think Metal Gear, you think Hideo Kojima. I don't make the rules. If Kojima were to, say, turn Death Stranding into a dating sim where you get to make out with Norman Reedus and Mads Mikkelsen, sure, we'd probably question his desire to make something so outrageous, but chances are 99% of his stands would eat it right up. So, bringing this horrifying analogy around, if Toby Fox wants to make something different than what we've come to expect from him, maybe we should let him. In the Twitlonger post, it's made clear that he knows more than anyone how difficult it'll be to make this game happen. By the way, I was really worried at first about making this. The expectations for my next work would be really high, so high that I knew that no matter what I did, I felt like people would be underwhelmed. If you played Undertale, I don't think I can make anything that makes you feel that way again. However, it's possible I can make something else. It's just something simple, but maybe you'll like it. See you in years? Okay, don't forget.
Don't forget, I'm with you in the dark.
I said it before, but there's no real guarantee that this game will see the light of day. I have the highest hopes for its expedient realization, but it's clear that not too much has changed since the demo's release last October. In the Twitlonger post, Fox states that nothing past Chapter 1 had been created besides some music and the entire scenario, but in a recent tweet he implies that it'll still be a number of years before the project is completed. I think that's okay though. I mean, considering he's already brought us an absurd amount of joy through his debut work, I think the least we could do is give him all the time he needs to deliver another. I have faith that, if this first chapter is any indication, the final release will be as good as, if not better than, Undertale. In the meantime, I'll be over here, replaying Undertale for the 7th, or is it 8th, time.